Welcome to Ignite Your Confidence for women in leadership who want to speak up and stand out. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Here you'll get all of the tips and tools that you need to stand out with unshakable confidence. Let's dive into today's episode. All right, we are here with Dr. Shawn Horn. Let's hear from her specifically out of her mouth who she is and all that she's about. So,
Thank you.
thank you
I
so
am
much.
Dr. Shawn Horn, a licensed clinical psychologist in Washington State. I've been in the mental health field for 28 years. I have a private practice in Spokane, Washington since 2003. I serve as faculty at the University of Washington Medical School, and I now have a podcast called Inspired Living. I have an upcoming TV show called Uncovered, where I highlight shows of people who have stories of healing, stories of walking through their shame and the hope and the victory they experience and the freedom they experience after sharing their story. And I'm doing that with Nicole Mishke, who is a journalist. And I also, uh, let's see, I'm forgetting where I left off on. I have a column in Toi magazine and a whole bunch of other stuff. So this is me. I'm known as the shame-busting psychologist.
I love that so much. It is such an important topic. Oh my gosh. Well, you know that my podcast is all about confidence, and that's what people come to hear more about. And I'd love to learn from you. Was there a time, because you're so accomplished, was there a time when you didn't feel so confident? And what
Yes.
was that like? And I'd love to hear more about that.
I have two layers of this and I'm going to share with you. So, the first one is that when I was 6 years old, I was in first grade and they gave us one of those achievement tests, one of those academic tests. And I was filling out the bubbles and I was drawing pictures and I really wasn't paying attention. And so, when they got the scores, they told my parents, they said, "Oh my goodness, your child has severe cognitive delays. We think that she might be mentally challenged." And they ended up putting me in special education. And I basically was unschooled until I started college. So my entire academic career, I was just put in these separate classes, removed from my peers. I was not given high expectations. I remember one time in middle school, I had a professor or an instructor who really had a passion for teaching kids, and he started to do algebra with us. And then there was a budget cut, and they had the woodshop teacher take over, and he handed out these papers that said 0 + 1, 0 + 2, and so forth. So I went up to him and I said, "I'm going to go to high school next year. I really want to be able to learn algebra." And he laughed and looked at me and said, "Shawn, you will never be able to learn algebra." And so this is what I was constantly faced with.
Wow.
So here I am in high school. I don't expect to go to college, but I was an athlete. I'm 6'1". There's nothing about me that's small. And so I got an opportunity to play volleyball at a local community college, and they had a program to teach students how to learn and how to approach school. And that's when I learned really how to do this whole thing education. I had them sit down with me, teach me about a master calendar, teach me about taking notes, how to listen, how to engage with the teacher. And I really applied myself. And from that, I ended up getting A's and placed on the dean's list. So I learned in that moment, oh my goodness, like I'm really smart. I didn't know this. And, it's kind of the class clown, and people knew that, oh, Shawn, she's a lot of fun. She's got a good head on her shoulders, but she's just not the academic type. And so here I am, just so motivated to pursue this. And I thought, well, gosh, can I get a doctorate? And so all the doors opened up. I ended up getting my doctorate. And in the very beginning, they brought me on. I say they accepted me because of my personality. And they said, "Shawn, we didn't go through the typical hoops that we normally go through with students." And because I was a last minute, they had an opportunity at the last minute I was recommended for. So he said, "We're going to have you on probation, see how you do. And then if it works, then you can stay. If not, then, we tried." So I worked really hard and I ended up getting in one of the top 10 students of the program type thing. And so I succeeded. And then from there, I just started to pursue my passion, which was to help people and to do all of that. But I didn't realize until recently that that was a shame shield for me,
Mm,
the pursuing my doctorate. That I thought if I get a doctorate, then people will know I am good enough. They'll
mm,
know how intelligent I am, and no one will ever question that again. And so I started to really identify with my career, identify with the status and the title. I am Dr. Shawn, the licensed psychologist. And I built this wonderful career, but I found myself at this place where I was somewhat burned out. And I was here in Spokane, and the world always called me to a bigger stage. I always had opportunities. It wasn't something I pursued, but there would be people that say, "We want you to talk," or "We want you to come on TV and be an expert, to talk about something." And I had this feeling in my gut that I was meant for something more. But here I am in Spokane thinking, what is more in Spokane? I mean, it's a small town. I'm not in LA or Chicago or New York. Here I am, it's starting to get into my 50s. I mean, really, I think that that opportunity is gone by now. And so I kind of just was getting settled into my career in that way. And so then when I had this opportunity to go to this women's conference, and I went there and they had us do all these exercises, and they were so uncomfortable. Like you had to look at people, hold them their hands and look deeply in their eyes and say what you saw that was beautiful in them, what's beautiful in you, and so forth. And I thought, oh my gosh, I do not need to do this. I am out of here. But I went with my daughter, and I really wanted her to see this me engaging, so she would be motivated to engage too, and she loved everything about it. But then when I was there, something shifted in me. I could not put words on it other than it was like the closest thing to being born again, but not in a church, you know, to being in this women's group. And I felt like this veil came off of me, and I'm like, oh, there you are, Shawn. And I got the message at this conference that you're meant to serve this world with your gifts, and you need to serve and bring them. And that my gifting always seemed so big, and I didn't know how to make sense of that, but it was bigger than most people in my world. And just to give you an idea, I have a brother that's a famous musician. I have famous people in my family. I've always had very unusual experiences in my life. Like my husband's adopted, and I found his biological family, and we discovered his dad was an original, what do they call it? That WrestleMania stuff, WWF stuff. He was the villainous. It was not politically correct anymore, but they used to call him the villainous Oriental. And, he was out there in the 60s. Nothing is normal. I'm 6'1". I'm married to this Japanese adopted man. My kids are born on holidays. I mean, it's just this way, right? But whenever I shared this, because I'm in the mental health field, and the mental health field often has a lot of introverts that are very calm. They're like the calm gurus on top of the hill. And I am not, I feel like I'm a unicorn in a donkey world, like how do I calm this down? I'm Mexican American. I mean, I'm passionate. I'm the life of the party. I just didn't know how to do that. And so the mental health field told me that that's grandiose or narcissistic, or someone you would hear from the general population like, oh, you're being a drama queen, or you have to be the center of attention all the time. And I really was trying to play the role that my field had given me, which was to play small, to not disclose, not be transparent, to be very calming, which I can be, and to take on this sort of persona. And at this conference, I felt like they were telling me to give me permission to go big and not to see it as my ego, which I had associated it with. Like, if you go big, that's your false self. That's not your authentic self.
mhm, mhm.
Most of the time, people are um, seeking that outside recognition. I call it living from the outside in. But for me, it was, if I was going to do that, to step on to that stage in a bigger platform, I was going to have to live from the inside out. And so I came back from this conference and I announced to my friends, I said, I am going to go big. And they said, well, what does that mean? And I go, I don't know. I don't know. I might be on a stage. I might be on a magazine. I might be on the radio or TV or something. But I have no idea. I'm just going to say yes. And they laughed at me. And one of them said, oh, Shawn, I think that's your ADHD kicking in. Yeah, yes. And I thought, "Oh, guy," and I knew that my colleagues were looking at me like I was reckless, that I had poor judgment, because there weren't psychologists showing up on social media 3 years ago when I started in 2018. And so I had no examples. And in our field, there's standards which everybody abides by. We have laws, we have ethics, we have standards that tell you do it this way, and that's the right way.
Yeah.
But to go big and to give myself a voice, I had to do it in a way I didn't see any other psychologist doing it. And my colleagues were questioning me. People I did not, my ego got activated. I did not want them to see me as having poor judgment. So I started to get real concerned about their perception of me, which is shame, because shame, it focuses on appearance management. Real quick, just to highlight, guilt is what I feel when I violate my standards. Shame is what I feel when I violate your standards.
Mhm.
And having a shame-bound identity, which we call toxic shame, is what I've come to believe about myself when I violate your standards. So when we're trying to play it safe so we don't get shamed, we get real motivated to do this appearance management. And so I was haunted by this. I still felt the nudge. I was honoring my gut, which was one of the first steps to giving yourself a voice, is really honor your gut. I call it the cave woman inside me. She doesn't talk English, but she grunts and groans and stuff. And so she was nudging me, go, she was saying. So I did. And about 4 months, within 4 months, I had my own podcast. I was on a cover of a magazine. I had my own column, and I was doing all sorts of stuff. I mean, I was all over everybody's being interviewed, writing, doing all sorts of things, and started to talk with a publisher on a book deal. So everything's just unfolded in this really magical way. But I thought, gosh, is this still okay? And so at that time, I decided to create the psychology directory to highlight psychologists on social media. And about 5 months or 6 months after I created it, I got a message from the American Psychological Association president. And she sent me a message saying, can I be listed on your directory?
Oh, how exciting.
In that moment, I knew that it was okay. And I had this moment where I sat there and I thought, okay, Shawn, let's have a little moment, mano to mano. We're going to talk about this, because I was so worried I had poor judgment. And I said, do you have poor judgment? I thought about it. I said, no. Do I have poor insight? No. Am I ethical? Yes. Am I professional? Yes. Then can we be done with this conversation? So I kind of let it go and I just went bold forward. And so when that president sent that to me, it was really validation to me that yes, not only is what I'm doing okay, but I am now getting an endorsement by our professional association. And all those people that naysayed me before and mocked me and put me down were coming up to me saying, how can I do that? Can you teach me? So I had to push through those barriers that I didn't know were there. I had no idea how much I had a shame mask with my career. And for me to go to the next step, to the next level, I really had to make that transition to be self-led, to be led with my higher self, my spiritual self, my gut. And you cannot look to the right or the left and question yourself like, is it okay? But because I had that background of being in special ed and being told my whole life, like, oh, you're just silly, you're goofy, and getting this message that I have poor judgment or that I didn't have what it took to be a wise, self-led person in this world, I had this doubt that I had to work through. So I busted through it. And here I am in this fall. I'm going to be an upcoming TEDx speaker. And I've got all sorts of things in the works. So it really was meant for me to go big, but I was in a rare group among my colleagues to do that.
Wow, that's so great. I'm dying to know what you would say to your younger self if you could go back.
Oh, goodness. Part of me feels like I needed to go through all of those steps to get to this place, to have me discover my own inner voice
Mhm.
in all of those ways. Each one was a stepping stone where I learned something new about myself. So those parts I wouldn't necessarily take away or encourage myself differently. But what I would do is say, it's going to be okay. To
Mhm.
calm my anxiety, it's going to be okay. And I also learned in this journey that I'm a empath and I feel people's feelings. And so I would go into a room, a situation, and I would feel great going in, but I'd walk out feeling insecure and anxious. And I thought, why is this? And I thought it was me being in social contexts that I had distress around that. But I later learned I was picking up people's feelings. And it wasn't mine. I call it being sticky noted. Like I meet someone, they go, "Hi, I'm Paul," and sticky note me with anger or something, and I'm like, ah. And so when I discovered that what I was feeling was me picking up the energy and the emotions of other people, that really helped to embolden me and to not own those pieces and try to sort it out. So I would have wanted to teach myself that, and to also know that to be selective with who I associate with. I found that I would find a group of women that I really wanted to be part of, and I really wanted to do the cool stuff they were doing. And I would approach them, but they didn't take advantage of what I had to bring. So I thought, why? And I would keep trying and keep trying. And what I learned in this journey is that banquet table is not the one I meant to sit at. I meant to sit at that banquet table. And in many ways, I was trying to fit in on a playground that I was meant to be at the college playground or the Olympian playground, right? Not the middle school playground. And I just didn't know that. And I felt that I needed to fit those people because I admired them, I respected them, but I had no idea that God was bringing me to really the 2 percentile group that I didn't know was out there, because it's very rare to meet other unicorns. And being on social media really helped me to meet them. And I'd meet other people that wanted to play just as big and to do really more highly visible things. And I just didn't know those people. So I would have said, your people are coming. These are not, that's not yours, but that doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. It means it's just not your match. And so to keep looking for those, keep moving forward in your aligned path, and it will come. It will come. But stay focused forward, stay focused on your spiritual walk, your spiritual self, and do not take the off ramp of fear into the land of control. You have to let go of control, really, if you're going to fulfill your gifting. And that is unnerving for so many of us, to step into this territory that's unknown. But really, if you're going to find the magic, you have to step into the unknown, because there's no way to know what's intended there for you.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Oh my gosh. I remember when I first quit, I've left corporate twice. And the first time I remember people feeling like, well, wait, you don't have security. I'm like, do we have security here? We could be laid off at any time. Like, I feel a lot more secure in myself knowing that I'm going to branch out and do what I want to do.
Yes. And
We
it's hard to stay grounded when people are saying that to you, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. And to your point of, I mean, finding your tribe, finding the people that want to also do the same types of things. And I feel like so often we are scrunched down and by other people's opinions or whatever it is that we might allow. And I talk a lot about the concept of the prisons that we keep ourselves in, or breaking out of those barriers, because nobody can keep us small except for ourselves. I mean, ultimately, but it is hard when you have the competing voices, especially with people that maybe are your friends or your family, or ultimately people
Mhm.
that you respect and that you care about.
Yes. And our generation was given that pension mentality, get a good job, work it, be responsible, and then you retire. And so we did get a lot of that feedback of don't be reckless, be responsible.
Mhm.
And there is a certain recklessness that happens when you step into your dreams or your potential that nobody around you has said this is possible for you. And but you feel it in your stomach, you feel it in that gut that says, but I think it is.
Yeah.
When I pursued my doctorate, I thought, but what if I can?
Mm.
Everybody says you can't, but what if I can?
What?
I got to at least try. And well, I feel like I'm getting nudged to speak. Well, yeah, but psychologists aren't doing it like that. But what if I can? What if I am that psychologist that does it? And I've been talking about shame since the mid 90s. And I had my first book I wrote, the publisher turned it down because they said people have shame about shame. Nobody will buy it. 7 years later, Brene Brown comes out and everything that she talks about is in my book. And, it's those messages where people push you down, suppress you, say, no, this isn't possible. We can't do it. This is what will happen, as if they know, as if they're fortune tellers, God, and could see like, how do you know that people aren't going to want to know about shame? Because I thought Brene Brown like put that subject to rest, but people are starving to know about that. They want to know, what do I do? How do I heal it? And I find that I give the message of the how, which is really missing. We know it exists, but here's what you do, actual steps you do to change it. So it is very unnerving when you have this, am I making a reckless decision? They're saying, this is why would you leave that job? Why would you step into that? And we face that. So that's where we cannot look at that and listen. I always say keep your dream close to your heart, like keep your cards close to you. Because when you first start, it's so fragile. And when people come alongside and go, yeah, no, I mean, it can really mess you up. I would have moments where I was moving forward that someone really near and dear to me, if they said anything that hindered that boldness, I would go on lockdown for weeks. So I really had to protect that because I was very, very fragile. Now I'm not. I've built up my skin and I have that confidence because I've done it. I've accomplished, but it took a little while for me.
Well, what was it like? Well, and I want to acknowledge that. First of all, thank you for sharing that, because I think anybody listening might have a similar scenario. I mean, I feel like since I've been involved in Clubhouse, I've met all, like, I never thought about myself in midlife because I'm always doing some new thing. Like, I was very fortunate to have a dad that had an unusual career, and I'm the last of 9 kids, and we all have untraditional jobs. So I think that's
Yeah.
cool in and of itself. But the challenge of actually taking that step and it feeling like, oh, okay, what can I do this? How, and what are people going to think? I mean, there's all of these things that get in the way. So I am wondering what advice you would give to someone else, someone who's listening, going, gosh, I really have this feeling and this excitement of, I want to play bigger, I want to step into something more. What would you tell that woman right now that's probably around maybe our age? I don't know exactly how old you are, but in our generation potentially.
Yes. I would say success comes from stepping out of your comfort zone. And it is also involves letting go of that control. And often we go to the people that we desire approval from to use as a sounding board when we do this. But if you're desiring approval, it's most likely because they haven't given it unless you do it their way. And we must know that shamers shame and judgers judge. So instead of going to the people that you've been programmed to admire, you've been programmed to respect, and they've convinced you that they're wise and you've been working to follow their recipe, instead of continuing that same pattern, and often that can be, sometimes we call it trauma bonds, that we're bonded to this pattern of finding a doubter, a disapproval person to try to get them to win their favor. Instead, find three wise people that are walking the walk and talking the talk, that are doing the thing that you are seeing, if you can find them. But they must be people that are open to the unknown, that take courageous and perfect action, that are not afraid to launch ugly, as I say, that they believe in the magic of dreams. They are positive in that way. They have a growth mindset where they know the value in doing things awkwardly and learning new things. And go to those people if you need a sounding board, and let them come alongside you and help you through that. So you know that you're getting mentored, you're getting wise counsel, but you can recognize that they are people that are there, that want the best for you, want to build you up. They do build you up with their words. They don't just say things that encourage you in a false way. Like, they will tell you if something is, if they have different advice or something for you. Uh, but those are the folks that you want to let guide you, not the shamers and the judgers and the naysayers and disapproval people, or the ones that no one gets it right except for them and everybody else is trying to get on their team. They play tennis. They're not on a team. They're solo players. So, and the thing with shame is that they need to keep people underneath them to keep their status, to be king of the hill, because they don't know that they are good enough unless they are the best. And that's an ego driven, that's a shame shield, that I'm the best, I know the most, I have the most knowledge and so forth. Those folks will not let someone stand next to them. So we must recognize that and just say, bless you, do well. I want you to have the greatest success possible, but then move towards those that are doing what you want to do. And if you're jealous, turn that into inspiration. Instead of saying, I'm so jealous of that person, or envious, say, I'm so inspired by them. And then learn how they're doing it. Get close to them, study them, find out what's going on. And that will help you along the way.
Oh, that's such good advice. That's a great way to wrap up, because it's so true. We want to know, well, what do we actually do? How do we do this? And I love that you're about the how, because so am I. It's like, what are the practical strategies? What are the steps that I need to take? And I would add for everybody, just start with something today. What is one thing that you could do to step into that? Maybe it's reaching out to someone that you know is supportive. And if you don't have anyone in your life that is supportive, please DM me, reach out to me, because I would love to be your encourager for anybody that might be listening. So I always love to leave with one question that's sort of random. Dr. Shawn, where was your first kiss?
Oh my goodness. I'm thinking a neighborhood kid when I was a little girl. But yeah, literally. But that would be my first kiss.
Okay, I love
Little
it's
6-year-old playing kisses behind the behind the door.
I love it. Everybody's got a story about their first kiss.
Hmm. I did enjoy it. I did like it. That's when I learned I like kissing.
Well, there you go. Even better. Well, Dr. Shawn, where
Oh.
can people reach you?
They can find me on my website at drshawnhorn.com, and also on Instagram, at all social media. My handle's the same. So it's Dr. Dr. Shawn, Shawn, Horn, like the trumpet. And so they can find me there. They can listen to my podcast, Inspired Living. But if they sign up on my website, they'll get all of the scoop of my upcoming courses that I'm offering, as well as other resources that I'm constantly bringing people.
All right, very good. Well, it's wonderful to see you again. And thanks so much for joining the show today. And that's a wrap of another episode of Ignite Your Confidence. I'm your host, Karen Laus. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. It helps other people find the podcast faster, and it certainly helps me. If you're interested in more tips and tools around confidence, please join me over in my Facebook group called Ignite Your Confidence with Karen Laus. Remember, you too can stand out with unshakable confidence.